I just finished watching Spider-Noir last night. I know it's been like a month since it came out, but they released it in a binge model, which I don't do anymore. Like, I can't binge everything. Like, the only show I think I've binged was probably Stranger Things, and we all know how that ended. I just don't like to binge anymore and like lose hours of sleep for because it feels like when I binge, I don't get to retain much info of the story later on because like at first like I'm watching it and I'm like getting it, but then as I'm falling asleep, I lose more info of what I retain, and then by the next day I realize, oh shoot, I didn't notice this, I forgot to mention this, and yada yada yada. So I just been kind of spacing it out basically, but I spaced it out too much to the point where I watched the first episode on the day of release, didn't watch the second episode until like 3 weeks later, and then I committed the sin of, saying that I wasn't going to binge, but I binged the last 5 episodes yesterday, but it was like before, like, I felt sleepy, so I was able to watch it like smoothly with no problems. Enough yapping. Let's talk about the show. I think it's good. I don't think it's like amazing or it like, gives like a new look on the, Spider-Man, variant of here it's Spider-Noir. And because this is a completely separate universe, you don't have to do any like homework. Like if I'm correct, I don't think this is the same Noir from the Into the Spider-Verse trilogy. Sorry if I sound so like nasally congested because I am. I'm just like chronically nasally congested. This is like a completely different universe, and it's the same actor who voiced the Ben Riley in, or excuse me, the Spider Noir in the Into the Spider Verse. But here it's a different, variant, and he goes by a different name, Ben Riley. But the character is still consistent, where he is in like a noir like film genre, like Amazon gave you the choice of watching it in like either color, like normal, or black and white. I watched it in black and white because I thought, why not? It would be a more fun experience to watch it in that style. And if you're someone who watches the color, hue, whatever, I don't think you're stupid or weird or anything, because apparently if you don't watch it in the black and white version, you're wrong and you're weird and you're not watching it properly. I think that's stupid. Like, I know people don't want to watch black and white because it's so like monotone and like boring for them. Me, I accepted it as a genre, as like a style that has been extinct since like many years, ever since color became a thing after the freaking Wizard of Oz movie that came out, the controversial one where color in movie is now like a big thing. But whatever, like, it doesn't matter what style you watch it in. I think the story is still the same. That doesn't really change anything other than just like it's more eye candy when it's, color. But the show, it clearly does explore like a noir like film style where it's not just black and white. It's not like, you can see it like noticeably some of the dialogue can get a little corny at times. But I think it's supposed to, like, reenact how movies and shows used to be back then. So I think it's fine. Like, they don't, like, overdo it. Except for one character. There's one character in particular who they introduce later on in the show. He is the corniest guy ever. And even, like, other people, like next to him, they acknowledge, hey, like, you're being corny. Like, can you shut up? And, like... Like, it kind of gets a little annoying at times, like, because he does overdo it a lot. But, whatever. But anyways... It's about a PI named Ben Riley who is, has the powers of the Spider. They don't call him Spider-Man here. I'm assuming for copyright reasons. I get it. I get it. They call him the Spider or Mr. Spider. That's his like alias. Right off the bat, we see him like kind of use his powers. Not really, because something you'll notice like in like maybe around like after the first 4 episodes, you don't really get to see Ben Riley use his powers as much. Like, he's just more of like a PI in the first 4 episodes, and then he later really becomes Spider-Noir in the last 4, which isn't like a bad thing. Like, I think the pacing is kind of a bit slow, but they just want to build up for a lot of the things that they wanted to give a payoff to in the latter half. Like, that's fine, but it does feel a bit slow. And you're just kind of wondering, like, okay, is it going to get any juicier anytime soon? Like, it's still entertaining, but it's not really, like, if you're expecting, like, good action, you don't get much of it until later. You're just getting more of, like, things that are being introduced, and you're getting a lot of questions, and then they answer it. Not they don't, like, speed run it through, but the pacing does get a bit faster, and there are a lot of more things that were addressed earlier on now getting answered. Like, for example, Ben Riley's wife or girlfriend, whatever, Ruby. We see that. No, oh, spoiler alert! We're gonna get into spoilers. I'm not gonna get it. I'm not gonna like spoil everything, but here's your warning. So Ruby. So back when he was Spider-Noir, he met this girl, and Ruby later died in a car accident. She's like, the car is like drowning, and then he tried to save her, but he couldn't. But we don't know why. But all we know is that he quit being Spider-Noir after, like he quit that persona until later when, these like POWs who got like powers, like, you got Electro, you got Sandman, you got Tombstone. By the way, these villains aren't really like, they're not the same Sandman and Tombstone you see in like the comics or like in other like Spider-Man movies and shows or whatever. These guys are just kind of just super powered. Like, they're just super strong, but they don't really utilize their powers. The only character here who utilizes their powers the most is probably Electro. By the way, I'm not sure if it's Electro himself or some other like Electro-like character. Okay, I was wrong. He goes by Megawatt, but I thought he was Electro. It seems like they wanted to use that name instead. But like, he's the only one who actually uses his superpowers that he has been given. Like Sandman here, Flint, Marco, he does get Sandy, but he doesn't really like use his like sand powers on what you think he would like utilize in until the very end. And Tombstone, I don't really know much about him. I'm not a big Spider-Man fan, but he does look a little different than like the traditional Tombstone. But I get it. This is like a completely different universe. This isn't like Peter Parker, Aunt May, Uncle Ben, like type beat, whatever. Like, I understand it's all going to be different, but that's just something that I noticed. But one of the villains here that play a big part in all of this is Flint, because he is the love interest of Cat Hardy here. She doesn't go by Felicia Hardy or whatever. She's not Black Cat. She is a lounge singer in one of the nightclubs owned by the overarching villain, Silvermane. He is like the big mob gangster. He's all about bootlegging, and his competition right now is with a mayor who wants to end prohibition, which basically, is to illegalize like manufacturing and sale of alcohol, which would end Silvermane's business and his like empire that he builds up. And Spider-Noir, that name is so hard to say. I'm gonna just go by Ben. Ben, he finds these POWs. He learns about Silvermane, like, doing all of this stuff. So he's got to investigate on where all of this connects. Why these POWs who suddenly have powers, like, why does it happen all of a sudden? Because we learned that 15 years ago, in like World War I or whatever, because right now it's in the Great Depression era, I think, but they come back from the war. They were all like experimented on, but their mutations and whatnot didn't happen until later, until like around this time. So he's like wondering why, and Silvermane is trying to recruit these guys to be his like muscle so that he can rule New York and run it. I just realized I'm probably blabbering a bunch of things that probably don't lead to nowhere. So let's just start with one of the main like characters here and like what her story goes to. So Kat, so I mentioned earlier she's in love with Flint. She is trying to find him because he runs away after his like mutation starts happening. He becomes like Sandman. But we don't really know why she sticks around with Silvermane, like why she is like his little like pet in like strings. Turns out she was like, broke, and she couldn't make a living for herself as a singer. So he was like, "Hey, I'll pay you good money. You'll be under a club where you make a lot of money. You'll get a lot of like, people watching you, but I get to control what you sing, what you wear, what you eat, what you look like, all that stuff." And alongside, like, or during her time, being in like his control, she meets a man, and then he later dies because Silvermane didn't want her to have any love interest. He was like, "Nope, I don't. Even though I don't have a crush on you, I'm not gonna let all these other guys crush on you." and he kills him, and then she wants to get revenge for what he did by trying to kill him. So she hired Addison, who was a fiery like power villain, to kill Silvermane, but he fails and he gets killed himself. And that is like the catalyst. I'm so sorry. I'm really bad at reviewing shows. So Addison is like kind of the catalyst where everything moves forward, because he was under Silvermane's like goons or whatever, but he doesn't know like how he got killed, like what's going on, why. There's just so many things that we're just kind of questioning. Where does it all lead to? But she hires Addison to kill him so that she can run away with Flint. But after that plan was foiled, she's just kind of stuck there. But she goes to Ben to like have him figure out and investigate what the hell is going on. But basically, throughout the show, sorry, I'm getting messy with my reviews again. It's just Ben trying to stop Silvermane and trying to stop him, but he also like falls in love with Kat. They kind of like reconnect over, or they kind of like connect over their like broken trauma that they did lose a loved one and they thought it was their fault. And later she like betrays him because she finds out there's this doctor who is responsible for all these like POWs like getting their powers now. She tells her like, oh, if I tell you the identity of the spider, are you able to save Flint? Because all these guys, they are dying as their powers are like getting like stronger, and like that it's like kind of taking over them. Like the mutation's unstable, but for Ben, his mutation is stable. Like it does take a while for him to adapt, but it's a completely different mutation where he's not dying. It's just there. Like he just has his powers like normally, but everyone else, like when they use their powers, they are dying. So he has to like figure out why that's going on. Like there's just a lot that happens, and it's just kind of hard to connect all of it at the same time until the end. Like I think how they wrap it up is smooth and like okay, but how they get there, it does feel a bit like you wonder what's so important. Like, is Addison so important? Because he had like pyrokinetic like abilities, but you don't really know much about him other than just him like just he gets killed. He reveals that like Kat's betrayal and whatever later on, or you don't really get to know other characters here who we explore a little bit, like the journalist Robbie. So he got fired from his like the Daily Bugle because the Spider was no longer active, so there was no interesting stories for him to like concoct. I just feel like that's just a bit odd that he is like desperately trying to get back into the Bugle after like all of this stuff was happening, because they booted him out, and then he wants to go back in because it's like, oh, I don't know. It's a bit like whatever to me. Like I just didn't find that compelling. Like his motive was just kind of just like, I want to go back to the people who kicked me out. I'm like, okay, and he eventually gets back into the Bugle, but not well respected when he comes back. But I guess he got what he wanted, so yay, hooray for him. Something that I noticed that I just like, it's not really a complaint of mine, but what I noticed is that when Ben is not in his like disguise and he's like talking to like other people, like they talk in public, and he talks about him being the Spider. He also talks about like other things that I feel like you shouldn't talk about in the open. Like they do talk more private stuff in his like office with like Janet and Robbie, but there are times when they talk in public, and it's like, do you not like Ben is aware that Silvermane is like following him, like he's like suspicious of him, like his men are like tracking him down, but he's just kind of like open up about like whatever he's like blabbering on about. It's a little weird because I thought there would be like a consequence of him like talking about this out in the open, but nope. Like the only time that becomes a consequence is when he's purposely trying to like, when he knows that they are following him, so he does like purposely do a certain thing to save him and like Kat, and frame one of the goons of Silvermane here. But like how they get around that was a bit confusing too. But like even though I'm basically talking about how difficult it was to like follow along in this show, it was still entertaining. It was still good. Like I think Nicolas Cage performance as Noir was cool. I think all the other back side characters here were fun to watch. Like I really like Kat. I think like the scenes we get of her with Flint or like her and Ben are, you know, you get to like kind of emotionally invest and you do feel betrayed and feel, you know, like, oh damn, that's tough when she ultimately betrays him for Flint because that's who she really loves. Like there are like good moments like that happens in the show, but if you're expecting like, you know, fighting crime like Ben Riley, yeah, like you get that later, but you just get to see him basically working in the first half of the show, which is still fine. Like they're building up what they wanted to show off later, but that's kind of all I gotta say. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.